Hello, everybody. And so we are here live for Bridging the Gap, episode 4. I am really excited. So this is our first live stream of this podcast. And the goal of going live, honestly, is to talk to you all. So do not hesitate to live chat us. Don't hesitate to throw in some comments. And if you have further questions, we're going to be putting up resources that you can use to get more information, to reach out to us, as well as to reach out for help if you feel like you need that. So I'm Andrew Nicastro, Chief Streamographer at Streamography Studios. That's where we are today. Also brother to a family member and an absolute stallion, Brother Dave.
Stallion.
What's going on, man?
How you doing, everyone? This is our 4th month, our 4th time doing this, so yeah, excited to be here once again.
Yeah. And can you do us the honor of introducing our guest today?
This is my
and maybe more than a guest, I would say.
Yeah, this is my good friend Kim Burdett, and we've been friends for a bunch of years now. She been connected by her husband, who is a vet, and been to church together. I've been in her home, her daughter's graduation, so really cool connection. She knows my kids, I know hers, so she's a good friend of mine and is a specialist in a lot of the things we've been talking about. So I've invited her in, and she has come in to talk about this. It's very personal to her, very personal to me, and it's an awesome connection. So this is Kim, and she's really great.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
Do you want to get right into it? Should we introduce myself or how?
Yeah,
do we
no, it's a
start?
good point. So let's start by just kind of reviewing what we talked about last time, which was, Dave, you gave your testimony.
Yeah.
You gave your story.
Right.
And that's, kind of reflecting back on what we're trying to do here. Our mission is to quiet the stigma of PTS and mental illness that veterans deal with.
Yeah.
Long story short, that's the goal here, and to help and provide help and explore what is out there for help for those that need it. So Dave, thank you again for telling your testimony. If anyone missed it, you can find it on our Streamography Studios Facebook page. It's on our YouTube channel. Also on the Cape Bend Veteran Services Facebook page and YouTube channel.
I was, if you missed it, I have a big beard now. Andrew said it's very Leonidas-like. I really thought that was cool. But I showed pictures of me when I was a baby Marine. Like, you see slick, high and tight, and then you see me side by side now with a beard. So it just shows the difference, life experience, where it brings us, and kind of my testimony of start to finish, how I got to the point I did with struggling with PTSD or post-traumatic stress. We don't like to add the disorder. And just kind of the dark night of my soul, how I went through it and had the suicide ideologies, the depression, the stress. And still from day to day, you can struggle with a lot of these things if you're not processing the work. So that's why we brought Kim here today, because she knows a lot of this, knows a lot of those terms, but where she works now, specifically with suicide. So we wanted to bring that out and have her tell her story. You get to know her, but ask questions as well. If you're struggling out there, type in your questions and share them with us so we can answer it in real time.
Yeah. Which is a perfect segue as far as introducing yourself, Kim, because our format that we're hoping to stay consistent with is if we can get veterans to tell their stories that are willing to open and share that, then we would love to follow those episodes up with a professional that can go deeper into the resources and what's available. Like you said, Dave, even just taking away the D of PTSD, how language plays such a huge factor.
That's right.
So before we get to Kim, one quick thing as far as a few calls to action. If you are a veteran and you want to tell your story, or you feel compelled or convicted to tell your story to help others, you can send us an email at bridgingthegapvetspodcast@gmail.com. The QR code is on the screen if you're watching. So we are looking for those that are willing to tell their story, to keep that format rolling forward. And if you are a veteran dealing with a crisis, I want to lead into this just so that if you need help, whatever you define a crisis to be as a veteran, there is a veterancrisisline.net, 24 hours a day. There's a call line, 988, then press 1. There's a live chat. There's all kinds of resources on that website. I scanned it quite a bit when I was adding all of these graphics to our package here. And so with all of that being said, I would like to transition over to Kim to talk more about yourself, your profession, your own experiences.
Sure.
So thank you so much for being with us, and we're excited to hear about you.
Oh, thank you, Andrew. Thanks for having me here. I'm by no means an expert. I appreciate that, but my personal experience is what has eventually led to my career change, my professional work, and really sort of my vocation now. But prior to April of 2010, I knew nothing about any of this, anything related to suicide at all. April 21st, actually yesterday, was the 13th year anniversary of my brother John's suicide. He was a Marine veteran and died by suicide at home. And John was my only sibling. He was a good deal younger than me. But like many families who I think experienced this, we knew nothing about any of this. Massachusetts is fairly resource rich in resources for suicide loss, and we were connected to support right away, which made all the difference in the world. And it was peer-based support. So I think anything that a human being goes through that is pretty traumatic and and sudden and damaging, when you can connect with peers who have been through that as well, that alone can be incredibly healing. So, the fact that you are opening this up to other veterans to come in, and I mean, that again, that can be healing. Just having the space to tell your story and to have someone else say, I've been there too. I felt that way too. So shortly after John died, I just had this sense of I need to do something with this. I need to. My life is going to change. I knew it would change. I had no idea in all the ways it would change, but that I just needed to do something. I didn't, my undergrad degree at that time was in marketing and communications, and I was home raising my kids and, working part-time. And, but I just knew something needed to change. So I made some space for it in my life, and I was fortunate enough to start in a part-time role and then transition through a different employer, but into working directly with other military and veteran suicide loss survivors, and being that peer, being that listening ear, being that, that person to say, yes, me too, to people all around the country who had experienced this. That gave me exposure to truly the greats in the world of grief and in the world of, specific suicide grief, because I would absolutely never say that a loss by suicide is worse than any other type of death. Look, death is death, right? I mean, the end result is still the same, the pain and the loss and the death by suicide, though, comes with, it's more complicated, I think. And it comes with some additional layers, some additional things that the survivors have to manage and have to navigate. And some of that puts suicide loss survivors at heightened risk for suicide themselves. So, this work and this care, it's called postvention. I think everyone knows about suicide prevention. We understand what intervention is when you intervene in something that's a little more acute or urgent. But postvention is the care for after. And so, postvention by its nature and by the fact that suicide loss survivors are at heightened risk themselves is prevention. So that really was, where my focus has been. And I have been able to marry a lot of my communications degree with this work and in, creating events and curriculum, to care for suicide loss survivors. And to sort of further that, I did go and get a master's degree in social work. I'm not a clinician. I'm not a therapist. There's my disclaimer.
My book, you are a professional.
Oh, well, I can be a professional, but I'm a subject matter expert. How about that?
Yes.
But the subject matter, and by the way, I'm an expert in my grief. Nobody else is.
That's right.
But I always knew that I wanted to be. It's a community social work focus. So, but I needed that foundation of the education, to sort of support my professional experience and my personal experience. So the work that I do now, where I feel so fortunate to be working now, is a nonprofit that is based out of North Carolina. They serve military and the veteran population. And what they offer is suicide-specific telemental health care for people who are moderately and at high risk for suicide. And that is unique because there are lots of organizations that, want to care for veterans, but aren't equipped or don't have the resources to really get in there when things are bad, when things are really, really acute. And if someone isn't able, because it's not local to them, or they don't want to engage in a local VA or a local hospital, or, this is it is another option.
Yeah.
And so this organization is called Stop Soldier Suicide. StopSoldierSuicide.org is the website.
Screen.
Yep,
Look
there
at
it is.
Good job, Boga.
Nice job.
Shout out Boga.
Right. So, that, and they use best practices to care for veterans through their wellness coordinators. They are all clinicians. It's just so well run.
So if
and
I'm a
well.
veteran, instead of doing the crisis line, I can go to Stop Soldier Suicide.
You can, and there is a phone number. Mm-hmm.
Awesome.
Mm-hmm. And
Wow.
we will get back to you if by chance someone doesn't pick up. And like I said, it is, they will screen you to determine exactly where your risk level is, and then to determine exactly what the care of plan is that, for what you need based on, your particular story. And again, it's unique in that it's suicide specific. The other unique thing, and by the way, I think I did say this, but if you've worn the uniform for a day, it doesn't matter the circumstance. It doesn't matter, active, which is nice because it's a safe place to go if you are active, because many times, within, it may not feel safe.
Yeah.
And again, regardless of circumstance or discharge, the other thing that makes this organization unique is their commitment to what they have called suicide intelligence and gathering suicide intelligence. So I work specifically on a project called the Black Box Project. And if you think about what a black box for an airplane is, that can tell you what happened before the accident. It might have been a crash. It might have been a malfunction. It gathers information on the minutes, hours, even days beforehand. So what the Black Box Project is doing is working with military and veteran suicide loss families and essentially asking them to donate. It's really borrow because we give it back, but their loved ones' devices, and namely their smartphones and their tablets and sometimes their laptops, to take a copy of that data, essentially take a picture of that data. We anonymize it. It gets really technical, and I don't understand all that part, but it gets really technical. But we take away all of the personal details, and we are working with organizations like Amazon Web Services. That data gets dumped into what's called a data lake to be analyzed by these big, powerful, AI-powered and machine learning programs to look for those behavioral patterns in what happened in the lives of, veterans and active duty service people who have died by suicide. What happened the last few minutes, hours, days, years. And we are in the beginning stages of this project. It's less than 2 years old. We did just recently receive, this is pretty exciting. So the VA came up with, they had a contest. It's not a grant, but it literally was a contest called Mission Daybreak. And 1,300 organizations entered. The call was, we need to do something different for veteran suicide. We're not moving the needle enough. And we need something innovative. Who out there is doing innovative stuff? 1,300 organizations or projects were entered. This Black Box Project got through the first round, and they were given $250,000 as sort of incubator money, and then there were 2 grand prizes of $3 million, and we were one of them.
Amazing.
So this project is one of them.
Proves you guys have done the work.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
We've done the bait. Now we need to go scale it, and that's my job. My job is to scale this project to. And it's incredibly, the information that we can learn is incredible because we're going to know how and when to intervene in different ways.
No one has ever done this.
No one's ever approached it this way. No. The piece about this that is so, I think, it's so impactful for me, in addition to what it can do for prevention, because that clearly is, a ginormous impact. But for a family member,
oh yeah,
to say, I can donate my loved one's device let them take what they need.
Yeah.
They're not, I'm going to get it back. I'm going to, get it back exactly as I
Could save
sent
somebody
it.
else. This could help somebody
It can
else.
save somebody else. It gives so much meaning and purpose in that loss. Not a reason. That's a different thing.
right.
There's no reason that you could give me, I think, that would be good enough that I would say, okay, it's okay that, this happened in my family.
Yeah.
There's no reason. But I can't go back and change history. I can't control all
You
the
said
things.
a couple things that I love. You said death is death.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't matter what it is, but with
Right.
suicide, it's deeper levels of complication.
Yeah. Yeah.
Those of you who are moms and dads, siblings, anyone that has ever dealt with suicide, it's a different level of a death, and the questions and the complications. And, when you were telling me the story of John, I am an empath, and I have been in that struggle.
Yeah.
I couldn't help but put myself in his shoes. And as you were telling me, in myself, I was hearing and seeing the flags, not from the black box standpoint, but from a veteran who struggled with it.
Yeah.
And as you were telling me, I was seeing them. I'm like, yep, that's what I went through. That's right. And I was waiting for you to get to the last piece of, and then there was a girl, or then
Yeah.
there was this.
Yeah.
And I was waiting. Something, usually there's a trauma at the end that blows us
Yeah.
up. to want to.
John's story is unfortunately what I have come to know now is somewhat typical, right?
Yeah.
Or somewhat
Oh, yeah.
common.
Very common,
He had some very, very, very lightweight legal issues that were completely navigatable. He didn't think they were, right? He longed for a girlfriend. He just wanted to,
Desire to be
that's
loved,
what, yep. And he just,
safety.
and he just, was kind of not choosing the right girls, and they were, kind of crapping on him, and
Rejection hurt
and
your
he
heart,
had
break you
such a
down.
gentle. We used to think when he was a kid, we're like, he's going to grow up and be a kindergarten teacher because he was just such a gentle
But he
heart
chose
and gentle.
Marine, same thing.
Right. When he chose the Marines, we were like,
What are you doing?
that one you chose really
Of all
Like,
of them?
Yeah,
You
we were
wanted
like,
to go to Paris Island and get your butt kicked in?
yeah, we were like, oh.
I always joked with the brothers that I was going to join the Marines, or I did that to Mom for a little while. And Mom was just, she didn't even find it. Yeah.
No, you're not.
She was like, Andrew,
No, you're
no,
not.
you're just, no, that ain't for you.
Yeah, you're right, actually.
Yeah.
With the Marines, like, obviously they take in everybody, right?
Yeah.
You could be any personality, it doesn't matter. You could be
Right.
alpha, you
Right.
name what it is, whatever the stigma is behind personality. But it takes everybody and it puts you in their box, if you will. They train you their way, they break you down. If you're not processing any of that, like John obviously didn't, I didn't, then when you leave that life or wherever you're at, you're struggling to adapt and get back into civilian world.
Yeah.
And so his struggles never stopped. He just didn't know how to put the language to it. And
Right.
Again, he just, all these different aspects of legal to rejection to, at least in that uniform, I had some semblance of safety.
Right.
You know, even it didn't
Right.
mean it was right, but he did have it.
Right.
He
Right.
didn't have it outside of it.
Right. So he and we, again, hindsight can be 20/20, right?
Yeah,
you learn,
hindsight's so
when you
brutal
look in that
sometimes.
rearview mirror, and we had to learn, you can't, looking in that rearview mirror, it's really easy to judge yourself based on how you behaved
right.
then, but you
do it.
can't with the knowledge you only have now. It's
Exactly.
really unfair, but that's a hard process. But we wondered if he kind of had some struggles with depression even in high school. And again, looking for meaning and purpose and importance and So anyhow,
And with your experience, because you said how your brother's case was considered typical, do you find that, because you've through your years of doing this work, you've worked with other families and individuals as well, do you find that there usually is some trauma prior to military action, prior to?
I don't know that we. I mean,
Quite have the data to support that?
yeah.
Okay.
I mean, there is such a thing as a psychological autopsy where after someone dies, like the organization I used to work for, we were contracted by the Marine Corps actually to do psych autopsies with families. And that's when you basically interview people that were important to the decedent and to try to put more of those puzzle pieces in place so you can get somewhat of a picture of really what happened from the standpoint of the wife, from the standpoint of the siblings, from the standpoint of the parents, and from the standpoint of maybe command, and you know what I mean? And all of those are different stories, right? Because we interact with different people in our lives based on what role we have in that relationship. So, it can put together a little bit of that snapshot. It's hard to say. But
Sure.
what's interesting is think about what our phones know about us.
Everything and more, because it's AI and it's always changing.
Yes. And so,
Yeah.
our phones know things, and it's unemotional, right? It's just a fact. It's very factual what our phone,
Right.
you know, when
Yeah,
we're
yeah,
tracked,
yeah.
it is versus
Data. Just straight up data.
Yeah, and that's the thing. And it can be to be able to look at it that way with no emotion, although we know it is incredibly emotional. I mean, some of the things that you could perceivably find on a phone would come with a lot of emotional connection, right?
Yeah, yeah.
However, if you remove that and look at the data, then you can kind of elevate it to, again, to look for those patterns. An example is, so sort of statistically, they say, the experts in the field, I guess, that about 20 to 25% of suicides, those people leave a note.
Okay.
Again, this is in the beginning stages of this black box project, but almost half of the devices that we have been able to analyze so far have either in the notes a suicide note or a deleted suicide note in their phone. So that just tells you, like there was, and I'm sure
Is
there's
the number 50%? You said at
it's
least
almost half we've had
are
in our
either leaving
devices.
notes or deleting them. So there's
Having
some kind
written
of
the note.
cry,
Yeah,
there's some
yeah.
kind of
There's something, right?
cry. And are there flags being shown besides that note?
Yes.
Than other than that,
Right.
That family can.
So
look
that's
for.
one little piece. But if you combine that with maybe what other pieces that we would learn, right? And the goal eventually is so there's something called, I believe it's called an SDK. I forget what that stands for, but essentially not to create another app, right? We don't want to create another app to look for risk or, when people are doing certain things on their phone, they have to have another app. You can embed a software into another app. And so, for example, the VA has several different mental health apps. Well, if we can embed something that looks for those red flags, and then we're able to proactively reach out or proactively, it can change. It could, we could get in there and intervene before we get to
Amazing.
crisis.
And it's so
before.
important for family members to know this, right? Because the veteran, him or herself, might not want anyone to know this, but the
Right.
data you're putting out there is going to expose, hey, there are flags. Your veteran could be at higher risk than most. Here's the data to prove it, because we've taken the horrendous atrocities of suicide already and compiled this data with statistics, and here it is. These veterans have this in common. Search this. 50 to 60% had a note but deleted it or have hidden it. Like, this is amazing information.
Right. And we're at the very beginning. And so, and ultimately the goal would be, to build something that we can then share with other populations too. Law enforcement, construction, they have very, very high
risk
suicide
as well.
rates.
That's right.
Yeah.
Addiction, everything. Yep.
So, I mean, the uses for this, again, we're in the very beginning stages, but it's really, really exciting. And like I said, my role is to be able to just scale this because, 100 devices will give us one chunk of information, but 1,000 devices will give us that much
The
more.
other thing I really love that you said, as someone who is, who has been through suicide, you have purpose.
Yeah.
Because people can get stuck in that depression, questioning.
Rightful. I mean, warranted, right? I mean, my mom and I used to say, like, okay, like, yeah, we would probably have valid reason to not crawl out from under the bed,
That's right.
right?
That's
I mean,
right. Uh-huh.
But that is not, one, I know my brother wouldn't want that.
No.
But I can't, if I could control all the things in the world, this would be a very different place, but it is not the world according to Kim. So, we have to find a way to, our belief, and my family has a very strong faith, and we were like, we will find a way to move forward with this and help others somehow, because if what I have learned through this whole process can help someone else, be it prevention, be it postvention, be it grief, the whole world, we are, we all grieve. Everyone knows someone who's going to die or has died. I mean, that, that is the human condition. So to be able to use what we've learned and help other people, not only, I mean, it gives meaning and purpose to my life going forward, but it's a living legacy for my brother. I get to talk about John, and you get to know about John, and how that's amazing.
And also, it still hurts. Like, if you haven't noticed, Kim is a talker, which is a good thing. It's a process, and we're trying to teach veterans to do the same thing, as you heard my story. But we still talk about it. We still process it. Every day can still hurt.
Yeah.
It's like it's not as sharp as it was in the beginning. It still hurts. It never goes away.
Right.
But you've transformed it into a purpose, and it is helping other veterans. And as a veteran who struggled with suicidal ideologies, I'm saying to veterans that this is another avenue. We have the crisis line, and now you have what Kim has brought up today with suicide prevention and just everything you shared. There's another tool now that we have to put in our toolbox.
It makes me think about when we had our little dry run conversation
Yeah.
about today. We had talked a lot about grief. And I think, I don't think, I know, I don't have data in my back pocket to back this up, but you could probably vouch for me. Every veteran is dealing with grief. Every veteran has lost somebody that is or was for a period of time important to them. We are a very grief avoidant society in general. I mean, look at sort of corporate bereavement policies. If you have a loss, you maybe have 3 days to, plan that funeral and get back to your productive job, right? Impossible. And we don't like grief. We don't do well with grief.
And there's pain in grief, though, Kim.
Well,
why would
there
I
is.
want to feel it?
Exactly. However, what I have learned to do and have hopefully been able to share with, the thousands of survivors that I've worked with is working to reframe that grief. We only grieve because we loved. We only grieve someone who, again, there will be people who die today in this world, right? I mean, it happens every day. Again, it's a human condition. If I don't know them personally, is it a sad story? Can I have empathy and sympathy?
Sure.
And absolutely. Am I going to grieve them? I'm not, because they're not, I didn't have that, grief truly is the flip side of love. And we as a society love, right? So if we reframe grief, it's a privilege to get to know someone in an intimate way that we can love them, whatever type of love that is, right? That's a privilege to get to know another human that way. The flip side of that love is grief. If that person dies, well, that's a privilege too. And that really, we only get to do that for the people that we had a privilege with. And so when you sort of reframe grief that way, I think it becomes, I don't want to say it's less painful, but maybe it's less scary. It feels less bottomless. It feels less negative.
Hopeless. It feels less hopeless.
So you're right. Most of it is. And to the veterans who are 20, 21 years old, who did their 4 years and got out. You may have seen combat, you may not, but let's play the role that you didn't lose anybody, and maybe you've never experienced a death. You're now grieving the squads, the platoon, and the lifestyle you once knew. You loved your unit, you loved what you did, you loved being a part of something bigger than yourself. When you get out, you don't find that anymore. You're back. You find yourself back in your hometowns. You find yourself back in, how did I get here? Like 4 years seemed like a blink of an eye. And you're grieving what you loved in the military, even who you were.
There are all types of loss, right? There's many different types of loss.
Oh, and having you, it's a process. You have to grieve this. And it's not so much you're going to sit there and cry with a pillow over your head. It's a mind shift. It's saying, wow, acknowledging I loved the 4 years I did in the Marine Corps. I loved the 4 years of the squads and the platoons. And
even if I didn't, I had a place. I had a purpose. I knew that the people on the left and the right of me depended on me, and they and I depended on them, and I had that purpose, right? You are part of the link. You're part of the chain, and you have a place, and when you come out and you're home and you don't have that, it is, and I mean, there are. The interesting thing about grief, over any type of loss, is it will wait for you. It will wait.
You mean if I run away and I escape, it's going to come with me somehow?
You can run. You can do all kinds of things.
Okay. Bottle of booze won't hide it forever? I'm just asking the questions out loud.
I mean, have you tried that?
Addiction, like to the scrolling, like it will follow me.
It will. It'll wait for you. It'd be nice if we could put it in a box and shove it in the back of the closet, right? But it doesn't work that way. Well, you can. I mean, you can put more crap in front of it in the closet, but it's still there.
Yeah,
it's still there.
Everything's in there.
Yeah, it's going to wait for you. The good thing about that is, we kind of talked about this before. If, in the instance of a death loss, right? You are, we talked a little bit about when you were serving, and there was, if there was, you're in theater and there's a loss, you still have to be mission ready and mission forward, and you legitimately may not have a lot of time to go and grieve this and do what, do the rituals and the things that carry so much meaning for us as we recognize this loss, The interesting thing is that because grief is still in the back of the closet, you can pull it out now, however many years later. You can pull it out and you can tend to it in a way that is meaningful for you. And so I have done this with so many survivors who just, for whatever reason, didn't get to do what they needed to do or wanted to do, you know, in those first few days after the loss. I mean, you know, if you don't, I have survivor friends who, you know, missed the funeral of their husband who died by suicide because they were in the hospital giving birth to their child. Wow. And, you know, talk about a layered grief, right? But didn't get to be a part of any of those rituals. So now what? You can go back and create some of those yourself. I don't mean go create another funeral. That's not what I mean.
Right. But memorialize in a good way.
In a way that, that means something to you now and that is significant to you now. And whether it is, you know, usually on my brother's birthday, we go to Dairy Queen and have a strawberry shortcake blizzard. I don't particularly like it. John loved it, but that's a connection to him. So I go and do something that is, you know, meaningful to me because it was meaningful to him, and it continues that connection. And you can go and do those things.
Really good to say out loud. Like, so in my testimony, I shared how Jeff, my best friend, died in Fallujah. Robert Pohl, another great friend, died by a car bomb down in Basra. I'm still in country for both of them. And I remember the tears flowing. The explosion of emotion wasn't there like it's supposed to. Grief comes in different forms. I know the tears were coming out my eyes because I was really sad. But again, I had a leader come in and say, we got a mission tomorrow. So it happens all the time. Just do what you got to do and get ready. I had to, couldn't feel it. I had to flip the switch. But now what I do for Memorial Day, because I have done my grief and I pulled it out and I memorialize them. I don't go and buy a bunch of Doritos. I don't buy a bunch of booze like everyone else. Have a big party on Memorial Day. I've been getting a kayak and going into the deep waters with a journal and pictures of my friends and just writing how I feel on that day or how I felt about them. And there are tears that come with it. And it's good that you said something like, I can give you permission to come back and pull it out. Sometimes we need permission to grieve, unfortunately. It's like, hey, it's okay to feel a certain way. There are veterans, many of them, who don't want to celebrate Veterans Day or Memorial Day. It's a very hurtful day for a lot of people. And one Vietnam veteran said there are 2 days a year where I grieve. I grieve on Veterans Day and I grieve on Memorial Day. And he says those are the two hardest cries of my year, because he's lost a lot of friends. And those of us who lost a lot of friends, we don't just want to party with family members and friends. We want to get away and give permission to grieve in our way. So,
whatever that looks like for you. You know, I'm so glad that you found something that you're able to. It's a release for you, and it's a connection to them, and you know that you can do that, and that's such a healthy thing. Like, so it's so good, and you can do that whether the loss was a year ago or 20 years ago. It doesn't matter, because your relationship with them is still precious to you and is still alive for you.
December 2004 was when he passed away. And I still feel it. It's not as sharp as it once was, but it's like when it comes around that time frame of December, when I think about Iraq, it's like, okay, there it is. There's that hurt because I loved him. And it's okay, men, to say you loved another man. We love our warriors to the right and to the left. Remember, most of us don't fight for a country. I'm sorry, the veterans that get it, the red, white, and blue, beautiful thing, but we fight for the men to the left and the right of us that are over there. That's a true story, because the country is so far removed from what we're doing in the moment. We're mission ready, and the men are what we see in their eyes. We're going into these missions together, and we want them to go home to their wives and children. So we're fighting for the men to the right and the left, not a country, not a red, white, and blue. As a whole, when you step back and look, we get it. That's what we're doing. But those who served in war zones, that's where we're at mentally. We want this guy to go home. When he doesn't, that's where that cut to our heart. That deep, deep cut. Now another one goes, deep, deep cut. And where are we processing it? So a lot of veterans need to be given permission, whether you've lost someone or not, permission to grieve. You have permission to grieve, guys. Women, you have permission to grieve.
And I think even just to build on top of that, you know, and you had mentioned this, you know, early on in your testimony, was creating space for it, giving yourself permission. But even beyond that, let's say someone sits down, they create space for that. Breaking down that first wall, I feel like, is the hardest part. Because even like myself, I'm one that numbs. You know, I am one that'll just numb my way through it, put it behind a brick wall, because it feels easier that way.
Kim said something perfect. Peer support. Someone who's walked 1,000 miles in those boots already or those shoes, who can guide the process of this person has a storm inside. All of those physical effects I said, from I can't think, the fog in my brain, God, there's a boulder on my chest, I can't breathe, I'm so hot inside, it's like a knife in my gut that won't go away. I'm hearing things telling me who I am and how shameful I am. And someone is saying what I just said. That's what all that is. It's this deep depression and stress, and my life would be better if it was over because I'm feeling all this physical. I can't go another day. Some peer is saying these things and calling out what you're feeling to guide the process of grief. Because what you're doing is you're feeling the physical effects of the war and the grief. And it's
And
just
you feel like
getting it
something
out.
is so wrong with you. Like, why?
Right,
why
this
am
is wrong. I
acting
shouldn't feel this
Why am
way.
I-
No.
And for someone to say, I felt that too. I had that crazy thought too.
Right.
I'm still standing.
That's right.
Right.
When you're able to, and not that they would have a magic wand or a magic pill or, the magic answer. There is no magic answer. But the fact that someone might be a little bit down the road further than you, and they may not feel it, but they are living, breathing examples of hope and survival. And so that's why that peer connection can be so. You as the peer may think, I do not have all my what together. Like I don't
right.
have However, okay, you get a little bit of perspective and you look back and you go, yeah, you know what? I was in a pretty dark place. Now I'm in a less dark place. So I'm going to continue on that path. And again, you can be that example of hope for
That's
so many
right.
people. And sometimes that one little maybe I can get there. Maybe that can be enough
That's right.
to hold on.
Yeah,
It really can.
I needed a few men to look at me and say, David, that really sucks. This hurts, man. And there is no words or answer for this right now. I just want you to know I'm here when you need me, and I'm going to walk by your side because I've been there. And just that little bit of hope that I looked at them and go, I want to feel less of this right now. So I'm just going to believe that he's telling me it will get better, even though I don't want to hear that right now because this is too painful. He said it is, and I believe that. So I was believing people telling me this is going to suck. There's nothing that is going to make this feel better except that I want you to know I will be that man to the left and the right now. I am going to let you know that it hurts. There is no answer right now except that it's just a hard process.
Right.
And you're just going to have to go through it, and I'm going to go through it with you.
Right.
That's what it took for me. Okay, got it. Marine said, mission, this sucks, this hurts. Let's long suffer, and I'm doing it with you.
But
Got it.
think about a mission. It cannot, whatever moment you're in, it cannot stay that way
That's right.
indefinitely. It will change.
Yes, it will.
Now, do we know what the change is going to be? No. Do we know if it's going to get worse or better?
No.
No. We'd like to think it's going to get better, and it usually does. However, it will change.
Yeah.
And so I think you had mentioned, you said like grief comes on in waves, or you mentioned something about a
Yeah.
wave. And I think about, here we're in Gloucester, but that brick wall, if you use the analogy of a wave that comes, or, those heavy emotions or grief, can you hold back an ocean wave?
Well, of course
No,
not.
of course
Yeah.
not.
No, yeah.
Right?
No, it's
Imagine the effort it would take, right? Well, first the effort to build that wall and to hold it up, right? But the effort to try to hold back an ocean wave, you can't.
we try, don't we? Though a lot of people
Right.
are trying to do it.
But the nature of a wave, it's going to come onto the beach, it's going to crash, and then what to do?
That's right.
It recedes.
Tracks. Yeah.
Right.
Wow.
So when you think, reframing what those, I remember my dad, after my brother died, he had a bunch of doctor's appointments, and in one of them, he said, he was sitting in the waiting room, and he just was overcome. And just, he said, I just sat there and cried, and I knew, they were like, sir, are you okay? And he said, no, my son died 2 months ago, and I'm, having a moment. And they were like, okay, what do you need? And he knew it'll come and it'll go. And, when you just kind of allow that and reframe it, that it's going to happen,
That's right.
and then you can't stay here.
Love
It
that you
can't.
can reframe our thinking, reframe the language we're hearing, we're telling ourselves.
Telling
Reframe.
ourselves,
That's
that's
the
the
thing, is
important.
telling ourselves. We're telling ourselves we're stuck here. This pain will be forever. I can't get through
The
this.
story we tell ourselves, and by story,
And
I don't
yeah,
mean
I just
make
don't
it up.
want this. Yeah.
Right. But the story we tell ourselves matter. How we speak about what we're experiencing in our own,
right.
in our own conversation internally. how we speak about what happened to us, how we speak about how we're navigating it, what we feel about it matters. I don't mean tell yourself lies and try, and try to be all Pollyanna.
Because that's another
and,
tactic. We can
right.
we can lie to ourselves.
But if you can tell suicide loss survivors, as an example, many of them will say, I should have seen something. I should have.
Yeah.
And
Right.
Survivor's guilt.
Yeah, yeah.
Guilt of it all. That's right.
reframe that to, I did the very best I could with the information I had at the time.
That's right.
That's a very different, it doesn't dismiss that what happened back then happened and I didn't see it. I didn't know.
That's right.
But I did the very best I could at the time. It's a very different,
Wow.
so what that story that we tell ourselves matter. And if you're going to tell a story, you might as well tell a good one.
There are people
Like,
listening right now who their veterans did commit suicide, and they might be struggling with this. And some days they feel good; they're at the top of the hill, and then you said the wave comes, and they're at the bottom of that valley. It's coming back at them again, and it's constantly reframing, constantly telling ourselves the right story.
Grief is a process,
Yeah.
it just is. And time does not heal all wounds. I don't subscribe to that. But time changes things.
Yeah,
Time changes it,
Right.
it doesn't change what happened. It doesn't change, that it did happen and the circumstances were what they were. What changes is us. And that actually is an opportunity,
Yeah.
right? To reframe it and to do the work and to change how we decide to process. It was almost like a light bulb for me when I wouldn't say it was shortly after John died. It might have been almost a year for me, but there's no timeline. But
No.
when it dawned on me, oh, hey, I have a choice. I didn't choose that this happened, but I can choose how I respond to it. I can choose what I do with this. This is forever my life story and the story
right.
of my family, and it's a pretty sad one, right? And it forever will be a sad one. But I can choose what I do with it. And that was such a freeing thought of like, oh, wait a minute, because up until that point, nothing felt in my control. Nothing felt, that I had any choice over it. And I think it's that way for a lot of things. We can choose. Doesn't mean it's an easy choice. Doesn't mean that our choices are all what we would want. But we do have some choice there. We have some say.
And some days it hits you again, and you said, I'm going to choose to grieve today because I'm hurting and I need to get this out.
Yeah. Yep.
The open wounds become scars. They're still there, and they
That's right.
still hurt.
That's right.
Sometimes they open up a little and we feel it again. I'm going to choose to just feel again.
Yep.
People avoid the feelings and the deep hurt, and I'm telling you, that's where that's where
You
we get
can
wrong.
dose yourself with grief. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? You really can. You can be like, okay, I'm going to step into it, give myself permission to feel it, and then I'm going to step back out and kind of go on with my day or my life or,
I feel like that stepping into it part is the part that at least I don't really know how to do. And I've even gone to therapy. I've done therapy sessions, but even still, just stepping into it. Like, how does one do that? Or I guess just giving themselves permission in the space.
Well, I
Right?
mean,
I guess-
it's funny being 13 years out from my brother's death, but since that time, both my mom and my dad have passed. With John, I purposefully revisit that.
Yeah.
Because I want to, it's strange. The grief now is a connection to him. Like that, those feelings are a connection to him. My mom would describe it after John died. She said she felt a physical hole in her heart.
Right.
And a lot of survivors will describe that. Over time, she said, you know what? I do still feel that hole, but I don't want it to be gone. I don't want it gone. That's my connection to him.
right.
That's where he is. And so she came to cherish it, which is strange. I mean, in the beginning, you're like, why would you,
Pain and the tears are a connection to that person. And like I said with Jeff, when I on Memorial Day take off, the family's texting, "Hey, party at this place," and I'm completely avoiding it and saying, "You guys know me, I'm gone. See ya." And I'm gone on a kayak all day, and I am purposely grieving and going to that place with a journal in a healthy way. Directly
Yes.
connected. I'm giving myself permission, like you said, in doses to do this.
Yep.
It's a day that I want to be with my guys in my memories and to rejoice and reclaim that part and say, thank you that I had that time with them.
Right.
The memories I have are good, and here are the memories that we had together. And I'm crying pretty hard, and I'm hurting pretty much, and I'm journaling. So it's for those who struggle to step in, and it's permission. You have permission to grieve. If you struggle to grieve and you don't even know what that means, it's connecting with us. The email that we have, it's so long that Boga's going to put it up because I just sometimes struggle. to
No,
say
everything
it.
was taken.
But,
Everyone's on Gmails these days.
Yeah, it's hitting us up and saying, you know what, I'm hurting right now. I don't know what to do. You're just saying all this stuff, and the language sounds all psychology, and I don't know.
Yeah, it
but
sounds good.
we can get on that ground level and say, we can start a peer support group.
Yeah.
We can get a bunch of people in a room
Yep.
and talk about how to do this and pass it
Establish
around the
a
room.
safe place so it
Yes.
feels safe, and so that we know that because I think part of our reluctance to go there is it's scary. It feels like if I take this wall down even one brick,
What am I scared about though?
well,
what is going to happen?
I'm right. You have to walk that out a little bit. But I think we think I'm going to lose it. I'm never going to be able to control myself again, or I'm going to get to a place that I can't get back from. And that's not true.
It's not true. at
And
all.
we might not know what's on the other side of that wall,
Right.
right?
Right.
Too?
It's
freedom.
scary.
We know, me
We
and you,
know.
Kim, know it's a
Right.
freedom to feel.
Right.
It's a freedom.
Right.
All that stuff we're hiding that we feel is going to be exposed, whatever it is, we feel if I take this wall down, what am I fearing? Why am I afraid to take it down? Because you have to remember certain things that are hard to actually get it out. It's in there. We talked about it. It's the grief stays with you. It's in there waiting to come out some way. For most people, they're hiding it. It's coming out in addiction. For most people, name the addiction. They're just numbing to not feel,
Right.
but it's always there.
Understandable, like you said. Who wants to feel
Who wants to
that?
feel all the time?
Who wants to?
Yeah.
But when you are at the end of your Memorial Day, you're probably emotionally exhausted, but
Yes,
feels so
light, floating.
Yes.
Man, I just
Yes.
remembered my buddies. Thank
Yes.
you that I didn't ignore them.
Right.
Ignore what
remember
we had to
that
give
love and that
Yeah.
connection and that
Yeah.
so you give yourself that, and that's what's on the other side of that wall. But we don't know that until
Right.
we experience it, and then it feels so good, but it's scary. It is scary because I think like I said, we feel like we can't get back from it.
That's right.
And again, an ocean wave cannot stay on that beach. It can't. It has to recede. It has to.
We all have a wave inside of us. Like I said, if there's a storm brewing, right, and we just stay stuck looking at the storm around us, I mean, come on, there's a path straight ahead. The fog might be over. Like I said, that fog in your brain, you might be feeling that pain, but you do get through storms. Storms pass. And if you do it the right way, you do feel so much better, so much lighter. And yeah.
I was gonna say, you bring up a great point, and I love the storm analogy, right?
Yeah.
And in a lot of storms, right? If you're just trying to go in one direction, like you're saying, you have to find your northern star,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. Oh, yeah.
Because if you can't find a northern star, you might not know what direction you're going
Right,
in.
yeah.
So when you're traveling through your storm, what's your northern star?
Yeah, I mean, for me personally, and for those of you who heard my testimony, it's my spirituality. It is. I used to numb and be addicted to so many different things, a handful of things, and I was numbing all over to not feel. For me, when I finally went back to church, when I had my crash, it was a mental crash. It was spirituality. I don't live for anybody of this world. I don't live for anything of this world. I had so many idols that there wasn't a God in my life. But for me, it was a God in the name of Jesus Christ. And Kim's wearing a cross. I have a cross etched into my heart. And it was me living for someone that could take it all from me. And I know a lot of people or some might not believe in that, and that's fine. You don't have to. But what is your purpose? What are you living for? Right. You have to have something. You have to have something. Some of us may suck at being husbands right now. Some of us may suck at being dads because of the storm that we're in. But if you can just get through that storm, right, with what we're telling you, the tools, to then say, my purpose is to be a better dad. It is to be better at this. These are the things you need to grasp onto because that hope is so important.
Right.
When you're losing hope, you can drown. You can start to sink in that storm. Then you start to focus on the waves or the wind instead of focusing on your northern star.
Exactly.
And so for me, it's my spirituality. Yeah.
Yeah.
Kim, same, I'm sure.
Absolutely. Any storms that I have been in currently in the past, my storm will get so crazy to me, so out of context for me for any tool that I would pull out of my back pocket to navigate. And I've shared with Dave, I maybe someone gentler than me and less stubborn than me would say, I'm going to place it at the foot of the cross. I huck it with every ounce in every strength that I have. I just because all right, you know what? I am out. I got nothing to navigate this. Lord, you got to take this because this is so much bigger than me. And I just have to.
Kim Storm is amazing. When she's done writing her book, most of you would not believe this woman and what she's been. You say, this is fake. And I'm here to tell you, and the people that really, her friends who really know her, she can't make up the stuff she's going to, it's absolutely
Just when you think you
amazing.
can make it up,
Yeah.
and then you go,
So
Really?
there is amazing trauma in this world. And to get this far, it's so easy to just give up. So easy. And she is not giving up because of her Northern Star.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
That's it. Because it's too heavy to do it without. Yeah.
Yeah. And you can get lost without it. You can get lost without a
Remember
Northern
those
Star.
the heavy rucksack and the pack is too heavy.
Yeah.
So for me, it was Jesus taking every one of those rocks and putting it in his ruck.
Yeah.
You know, and every once in a while, we do get stuck in this world and start to feel the pressure. We start to feel the pain. A lot of us veterans have bad backs, bad everything, because we're physically holding it in.
yeah.
And I'm telling you, when you
Right,
grieve it the right way and give it, how you just breathe and everything
Grief
starts to
is
work.
physical.
Oh,
Absolutely.
pain.
You feel it in your muscles. It's exhausting.
oh my goodness.
And I feel like if anyone actually does know they're holding on to something deep, if you actually take the time to look at it and listen to your body, you can feel your body clenching.
Feel it. Sure.
Like I can feel like the tightness in the chest and the stress and the anxieties. And
Yeah, for some,
I can feel
like the
it.
veterans, it's their voice. Listen to how your voice has changed to this, like it's a growl. I had it, but when I started to heal and cry and open up, I couldn't believe the change in my voice and everything in my lungs, the breathing.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's everything. And
Yeah.
my goodness, like some of you have the physical effects of the storm inside of you, and you're being affected physically. But there is a freedom when you learn to do it health, and you will feel better. You will feel better. Yeah.
amazing. So, Black Box Project. So if
Yeah.
a family if they're looking to donate their phones, knowing that they get the phones back and none of the data is actually lost.
Right.
So where does the process begin for families looking to?
Me. So people can email me. I think my contact info can be up there, or call me directly if they have questions about it. And we know what I love about this organization is they understand. They knew how important it was to have a survivor, someone who has experienced this, in this role to work with the families, because this is your loved one's precious. It's precious to you. It's one of their belongings, and you can't. Once someone dies, their stuff is, that's it. The end of, there is no more pictures of them. There is no more newer. So they truly treat it as sacred. And so the entire process of how the device gets shipped to us, like we are with you. I am with the families, the entire process. Our digital forensic investigator came from the criminal investigation world, so he has such a respect for the devices because he treats them as evidence, and as he was trained to do in for criminal proceedings, and evidence is important. It can make or break.
There's a chain of custody.
Absolutely,
all of this stuff.
and he follows all of that.
Wow.
And which, to me, it's just so comforting because that means he places the correct value on it and knows that, like, this is not, this is sacred. This is precious. And it's, like I said, it's just such a unique thing to be able to contribute. My brother had a flip phone 13 years ago. I'm pretty sure nothing on that would have helped, but because he didn't really have a digital footprint because we didn't really have that back then, right?
No.
But if he did, I would have loved to have been able to contribute that and say, you know what, like, this data, I don't know what it is. The way that it's set up, like I said, how it gets anonymized, it's not that we're able to pick up the phone, pull it off, and give a report to the family. It doesn't really work that way because of how we have to depersonalize the data. So we don't know this instance came off this phone that belonged to this person. We're never able to do that. But to me, that almost makes it even more valuable because it's like you said, it's just data.
Yeah.
There's no emotion attached to it. There's no, but this very precious data that I can provide, it's not going to bring my person back. It's not, but it very well may help the entire fight against
right there.
Right, military and
right.
veteran suicide. I mean, it's a way to literally join the fight and be able to do, to make an impact that way in the name of your loved one. It holds so much meaning for you. So families can reach out to me and
reach out to
and ask
us,
questions and
me specific, me personally, I know I haven't sat down to count, but 8 to 10 men in the units I work with have committed suicide. So it's making me want to sit down, maybe get in touch with their families and one, you know, I'm sorry, it's been a long time, and kind of invite them into this podcast to say, would you like to donate this? And this is what it could do.
Yeah.
They may say no, and that's fine, right?
Right,
But
right.
they may say yes, and it could, again,
Or they
serve
can say
purpose
no
and
right
help.
now.
That's
You know,
right.
I mean, they can, you know,
Yeah.
they can say, you know what, I'm not at that point. I'd like to
Right.
learn about it, and if I feel like I can get to that point and share my device, you know, we typically have the devices between 3 and 6 months, depending on. We use a lot of the same software that like the FBI uses. If a phone is locked, that may not be a problem. We can't promise that we can get into it, but we may be able to. We do not connect the phones to the internet, so we don't log into their social media. We don't, you know, we see other things like stuff that's downloaded onto the phone.
Right.
And, but yeah, I mean, you know, it's not, we're here. Now that we are, you know, a little bit funded, we want to grow this project to much beyond the $3 million from the VA, but you know, we're not going anywhere. The power behind this, the potential behind this for, like I said, beyond military veteran, even is too big.
That's
You know,
right.
it can make
We
too much of a change.
recognize, and we've said this in this podcast, how many suicides there are with veterans, whether you've been to combat or not, the mental health from Vietnam to the 20-year war in Afghanistan to all of this. And now you add in COVID and the state of the world and the country, it is through the roof. And we need a lot of help, and they recognize this. And this is a lot of help.
Yeah.
What you're doing is a lot of help. It's amazing.
And something new and different.
Yep.
You know, we've got to try something different. What we're doing is, I mean, it's helping a lot of people. It absolutely is. We need more.
Yeah, we need more. We need help from you viewers. Contact us again. I mean, are you everything we're saying? Are you feeling these things, or is it that you have a veteran or someone in your life that you're noticing flags? Get in touch with us. Is it a peer support group? Is it questions you have that you need answered? Do you want to connect with Kim more about what she's talking about? Do you have devices? These are so much things we talked about, but we love this stuff. Kim, this is your purpose, your life,
jam.
and you love this.
It's my jam.
And I can see it. I can see how
Yeah.
you feel, just the energy. You love this stuff.
Yeah. It's such a privilege. It really is. Like
Yeah.
I said, I get to talk about John. I get to, you know, I mean, I get to talk about other, you know, I've had the privilege of meeting so many incredible suicide loss survivors, strangely enough, are some of the most amazing people in the world, that are my most favorite people in the world.
Yeah, a tough club to
So,
be a part of, but
nobody wants
you
to,
guys are a
but,
very small club that you kind of get each other and you're healing together. I love that peer support group.
Yeah.
That's something I feel
So
veterans, if you
important.
want to do, we can do this. You just come contact us. We can do it.
Which is another reminder that the Black Box Project is under the Stop
Soldier Suicide.
Soldier
Yes.
Suicide Project, which
Yes.
is an organization that veterans can family members of veterans reach out as well.
So that they can, but the care that we provide is specific for veterans. I mean, you know, it's specific to, so stopsoldiersuicide.org is the best place to go initially. And it is, like I said, it is suicide specific best practice care for, and it's all telemental health. It's all free for, you know, for people who are moderately to high risk for suicide. I mean, who are really at that place and don't feel like they have other resources.
Something has to be done.
Yeah.
Work has
Yeah.
to be done. I don't know what that means for each person, but you just can't do nothing. You can't sit there and isolate and do nothing.
Right.
Work has to be done. And the first step is to say, I can't do this anymore. This hurts. This is painful. I don't want to numb. Reach out. Connect with us. That's the first step. Just reach out to someone. Do not isolate. Do something other than what you're doing right now if you're hurting and you're one of them. So
It feels like there isn't any help and there isn't hope,
there's
but there
a lot
is.
of help. Yeah.
And if you cannot muster the belief for that, lean on ours, lean on us, you know, lean on
right.
someone else's belief.
Lean on the strength we
just
may have.
in the teeny tiny little hope that you might be right. Maybe there is change for me. Maybe that will help me. Maybe it will. Even just that maybe is enough.
Hold on to that
Enough.
light amidst the storm of the dark storm, the waves, the winds, the crash, and that little light of, is there hope? Just that little question.
Maybe there is.
Maybe there
Right.
is. That's enough.
Right.
Enough.
Maybe
That's
is enough.
That's all I had at the beginning was, is
Yeah.
there?
Maybe is
It was
enough.
like even a question to myself. I didn't believe it was high pitch. Hope. That was enough for me. I was
Yeah.
good with that.
Yep.
And
Yep.
just, I don't know, the time just kind of moved and I just went with it because every day's a blur. And it was enough. I'm telling you, it was enough. So, yeah.
Until it turns into more than enough.
Then that gets fun. The seasons change and you feel a little better, and the pain is still there. The scars will remain, but it's that change in the mind and that shift.
Yep.
And again, you're not doing it alone. You're doing it in a community and together. So yeah,
Awesome.
really cute, really cool.
We are right at the top of the hour,
Look
pretty
at
much
that.
here.
It's been 10
Yeah.
minutes, hasn't it?
Yeah,
10
I know, it
minutes.
feels like it,
Has it been
right?
10 minutes?
Yeah.
Gee,
So this is our first live stream, and obviously, I think I liked the format of the live stream, even though I feel like we didn't get the interactivity
live?
piece. We were live this whole time.
This is awesome.
Yeah. So
This was not take one.
yeah.
Do it again.
So so this is a podcast we're doing monthly, Bridging the Gap. The name is very intentional because we're trying to bridge the gap for veterans, families of veterans, community members, to getting help, to noticing that maybe's enough. Right, that should be a bumper sticker or something.
Yeah,
You know, that should be on a T-shirt.
I know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we'll go through the calls to action one more time here.
Yeah.
If you're a veteran and you're dealing with what you believe to be a crisis, then veterancrisisline.net is a beautiful resource for you. There's a reason they use the word crisis. We've talked about this in other podcasts, but it's whatever you believe to be a crisis. Use that number 988, then press 1. Go to that website and chat them 24/7. It's there. It's
Text
available
988 as well.
and you can text 988 as well. If you want to talk to us, if you have a story you're compelled to tell, or just looking for guidance on where to go for resources, you can email us at bridgingthegappodcast@gmail.com. That QR code on the screen will bring you there. If you want to learn more about say it one more time.
Stop soldier suicide.
Stop Soldier Suicide. Kim can be the one to help you there. You can call, text, or email Kim.
Yes.
And otherwise, just share, like, and subscribe our podcast so we can just reach more veterans and spread the word.
Thank you, Kim. You're
Yeah.
amazing. It
Having me.
Yeah, it's fun. We want her back on. Vietnam veterans, World War II veterans, Iraq, Afghanistan veterans, Cold War veterans. Do you want to tell a story? It doesn't have to be written out like I did. It doesn't have to be a timeline. You don't even need pictures. We can just sit here and ask you questions. But do you want to tell a story? We want storytellers. And,
Story matters.
Yeah, we want the personal stories. Like you heard Kim, it connects you to the person. We need more people telling stories. You heard my story. We just need more storytellers. So if you're a storyteller or maybe you're not sure, come in. We'll ask questions. We'll make you a storyteller. Yeah. It's fun for us.
have a story.
Yeah, everyone has a story. Yeah.
I guess one last thing. I'd be remiss if I didn't mention that our good friend Adam, who's been on all of these podcasts, he is moving to Florida.
Good for him.
Got a new job.
Right. Yeah.
I'm gonna miss my fellow jawhead, my buddy who sat across. But
Maybe we'll zoom him in.
yeah, well,
that'd be fun.
congratulations to
Yeah.
my buddy, and he's moving on to Florida with his family, a new season of his life, and he will no longer be the veterans rep here in Gloucester. That will be someone new. Hopefully, we get to bring him on if they're on board, whoever he or she may be. But Adam, man, love you. Fellow jawhead, I'm not going to bark or grunt on this place.
Yes, you are.
And drool and everything. But, man, we love you, and just good luck down there, man.
Yeah. Good luck, man. I sent you a text and just helping us get this going and just helping us spread the mission, right? We developed the mission with Adam. This all was developed with his sites for this as well. He was the local Cape Ann rep, so he was able to tell us what he believes will be significant and impactful, and that made a difference. So thank you all so much. So we will be ending here. Appreciate you all, and we'll see you next month.
Love you, veterans. See you next time.